Hello, 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 hello. Glad to see all of you and hear all of you. This is Willie with From Save to Sane, and I just wanted to welcome all of you to latest episode of From Save to Sane. I see Taisha has checked in, so glad to have you, Taisha. Those of you who are out there who are joining us live, please send me a message. Let me know that you are joining us, that you are here, and that you can also hear me. I have on my headphones, I guess my earplugs, because it's such it's such a beautiful day here today outside of Vegas where we are, and it's about 85 degrees, dry heat. I have the window open, but I don't want to be distracted by all of the sounds, dogs barking, cars going by, that kind of thing. But beautiful evening here, afternoon here. It's afternoon here, and some of you guys are East Coast and even Central Time zones a little bit later. But glad to have all of you. So again, chime in. Let me know that you're here. Say hello. Make a comment. Leave some comments. But I'm glad to be here. For those of you who are joining us live, I said welcome. For those of you who will hear the replay at a later date, I thank you for doing that as well. Those of you who may hear this later on down the line, I also said thank you as well, and certainly appreciative of that. As always, let me start off by saying thank you to a couple of people. One being Taisha, who is in the chat. She said notification squad. And so she's out there somewhere listening. Glad to have you. As I always say, Taisha is in part responsible for why I'm doing this, why I'm in this space. She's certainly a person who was influential and helpful in getting me started on this platform in this space. So I certainly appreciate her. And those of you who are not familiar with Taisha Essick, please check her out on some of her social media platforms. She talks about a plethora of things. She also touched on some religious stuff as well. But she's going to give it to you straight, no chaser. So again, thank you, Taisha. Hope all is well with you and the family. Tell everyone I said hi. And secondly, is my wife, Salima, who is she always said my number one fan. She's always been 100% supportive of me, helping me in the background, making sure all of the technical stuff is going right. And so I certainly appreciate her for that. And so, with that being said, and we got that stuff out of the way, um, today's topic, what are we talking about today? So, today we're talking about Black Christians, unintentional partners of Christian nationalists. And so, as always, I kind of give you a background as to where these topics come from or how I come up with these topics um, when we do meet. And today's topic on Christian nationalists and Christian nationalism um, is part of what I'm doing, of what I've been doing recently from a teaching standpoint. So I've was contracted to teach a class on Christian nationalism and Christian nationalists with the American Humanist Association. It's a 3 day class, but it's 1 day a week. It's on a Wednesday. It's on a Thursday. Started last Thursday. In the first part of the class, which is basically sort of a history of Christian nationalism and Christian evangelicals and their merger. Thursday, we will talk about from a political standpoint and governmental standpoint, what's going on with Christian nationalists and why they are so dangerous, and their merger with Christian evangelicals. And then next Thursday, the last day of the class, we will discuss how secularism, or those of us in the secular space, can be an antidote to Christian nationalism. Why it's important that we make our voices known and speak up about the whole Christian nationalist thing that's going on. And so, yeah, and so that's what we're talking about. And so I wanted to bring, in part, the topic to this group and have that discussion. But as usual, I had to add a twist to it, and I wanted to talk about um, how some Black Christians, African American Christians, are unintended, in most cases, unintended partners of Christian nationalists. And so we're going to begin this discussion in just a bit. We're going to talk about the history of Christian nationalism. For those of you who may not be aware of what Christian nationalism is and Christian nationalists, we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about because of religion and our being us being African Americans, how our devoutness to this religion, Christianity and Islam to that extent, but particularly Christianity in this particular context, how that devoutness has led many of us to be unintentional partners of Christian nationalists in their movement to create what I call a soft theocracy in this country, and the things that we see, many of the things that we see going on now today. But right before I get into it, I just want to make another announcement. I talked to you guys. I just told you guys about the class that I'm doing for the American Humanist Association. But I guess, voted on to be a member of the board of directors for the Secular Student Alliance, the Secular Student Alliance, which is a college and university organization, primarily for secular students. And so I'm on the board of directors, just been appointed. I'll be on it for the next 2 years. And so I'm excited about that and the work that I can do on that board with promoting secularism on college and university campuses. And so we are excited about that, promoting and supporting those individuals who are part of the secular community on their college and university campuses across the country. And so we'll be doing work in that. It's an opportunity that came up, and I felt really strongly about it, having just taught at Georgia State and having recently, a year ago, so been a student, a couple of years ago, been a student on the campus, having an opportunity to share experiences with students there. And to my surprise, being a school in the Deep South, I found that there were a number, a large amount of students who were non-religious, secular, and even self-described as atheist or agnostic. And I thought that where is the organization for these type students? Was that a large part of their identity, so forth and so on. And so I found that there was an organization, the Secular Student Alliance, that promoted this space on college and university campuses. And so I wanted to become a part of that. And so, yeah, so I will be doing that. And so I'm excited about that. So I just wanted to make that announcement, bring that to you. And let me do this too before we really get into it. Promote my book, my first book, From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity Has Been a Detriment to the African American Community. This is available on Amazon, Willie O. Cartwright. You can get that on Amazon. So yeah, so again, those of you who are out there listening live, please let me know that you're there. Say hello. We'd love to get some comments as we dive into this conversation. So let's begin. So what are Christian nationalists? What is the Christian nationalists? What is Christian nationalism as a movement? It is essentially a merger of far right wing politics and Christianity as it is practiced in this country. And majority, when we think about it, we think about white Christians, far right extreme Christians, and the merger of the politics. And so that's where we get Christian nationalism from. On the one hand, there's a political or patriotic element to it where people say that they're very patriotic, they love their country. That's the nationalist or nationalism or nationalist side of it. And then clearly the Christian side of it is their affinity and their devoutness to Christianity, the religion. And so when we see a merge of that. And so what we're seeing now in this country is the merging of those two. And this has been going on for a while. If you go, and it's been different names given to it, and there's been different iterations of it. And I like to say, going all the way back to Billy Graham, those of you who are old enough or are historians, religious historians, you might be familiar with Billy Graham. Well, Billy Graham was one of the first and to today, one of the most successful televangelists, one of the early televangelists. But prior to that, he did these large religious conferences all over the country. He sold out arenas. Um, and he was really one of the first people, early people in the 1900s to 1940s, 1950s, 1960s to really push uh, the country in the direction of being pro-Christian. Um, and so he was sort of one of the first to do that. He didn't at that point really. He sort of stayed publicly away from the politics of things. However, historically, historians would tell you he had an issue with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Accused him of being a communist. He had a problem with JFK because JFK was Catholic, and so those of you who know again religious history, there's a separation between Catholics and Protestant. There is a historical and practical separation. If you know the history of Christianity, if you know the history of Catholicism uh, and Protestant, there's that separation, and then there's the practice separation, where many Christians, Protestants, don't see Catholics as Christian, when in actuality Catholicism came before Christianity, and Christianity became an offset, an offshoot of Catholicism. Protestant became an offshoot of Catholicism, and within Protestant there is Christianity among other Christian religions. And so those were those issues. But behind closed doors, Billy Graham had relationships with those individuals who would today would be considered on the far right and religious extremists. And so fast forward, you have characters like Bob Jones and Jerry Falwell. Those individuals, Jerry Falwell, who created the Moral Majority, which is the precursor to what we see today in the Heritage Foundation, and some of those other groups. That's when the merging of religion and politics started in earnest in this country. With the Bob Jones and Jerry Falwells of the world, they courted conservative politicians. Think back, if you would, to the '80s with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was he wasn't the first. Actually, Barry Goldwater was the first, one of the first politicians to openly court conservative Christians, the conservative right. He lost his presidential bid to Lyndon B. Johnson, who was responsible in part for the 1964 Voters' Right Act, and passing it as the president. And so Barry Goldwater was not a fan of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, although in full disclosure, he had supported similar measures prior to that 1964 Voting Rights Act. Um, and so yeah, and so you fast forward into the '80s, and we get Ronald Reagan, a former actor and governor of California, who openly courted the conservative wing of Republicans and the extreme Christian right. They were not referred to extreme at that time, but that's really what they were. And so in full out earnest, you had the merging of religion, in this case, extreme Christianity, the far right, and um, politics. And so the country, and historically, some of the things that you would hear and say is, these individuals, um, it was unpopular enough to oppose civil rights, and so they grab a hold of other issues, sort of as a facade, sort of as a red herring. So the whole abortion issue became a thing. LGBTQ rights became a thing, that they sort of gravitated toward, and with the attention being turning this country into a soft theocracy or a fully blown theocracy. Many people in the far right, Christian nationalists, believe, first of all, that all of us, regardless of our lived experience in this country, should be we should love our country, should put our country first or second to our religion, and that secondly, there should be no separation of church and state in this country, and that everyone, regardless of your religious beliefs, your religious background, or your religious disbelief, you should be a part of this country should be ran from the standpoint of Christianity. Let me stop here for just a second because I have not seen anyone chime in comments. I'm not sure if you guys got the notification. Um, Usually there are a plethora of people who are on listening and making comments, and I have not seen. So I'm sort of concerned about that. If not, then this would just be me talking until I get tired, and this would be up on the YouTube channel. So again, if you're out there, please comment. Let me know. So at a minimum, just say hi. Let me know that you're there, and I certainly appreciate that. So as I continue, so as we move further, we get into the Christian nationalists, and Christian evangelicals becoming more out front, more open, more vocal about the direction that they want this country to go into. I mean, to go in. Now, add the element of white supremacy, the fear of the browning of the country to all of that, and now you have cultural issues coming up. There's a fear of the country becoming more brown and more black. There's a fear that at some point in the near future, that those of European descent would become the minorities in this country, and that minorities collectively would become the majority. That is one of the threats and one of the fears that Christian nationalists push. They are for the most part, about a country that is white, heterosexual, male dominated, and everyone else falls in line up under that. And so that is a huge push. They believe that the country, as I said before, should be ran on the basis of what is biblical, what is Christian. And so all of that. And so now you have so what we're seeing now, regardless of what your politics may be, and I oftentimes say that I try to avoid politics, not because I avoid political discussions in earnest, because I don't. I certainly, if you follow me on social media, I will oftentimes engage in political discussions, but I try to keep it separate for the purpose of what we're doing here in this space. However, there's oftentimes a connection and a cross section between religion and politics, especially what we're seeing today. We're living in history. We're watching things that are going to be written about and talked about in the history books in years to come. Our kids, grandkids, great grandkids are going to read this stuff, and some of them are going to wonder, how did we allow ourselves to be in this position? And part of it is because of the influence of those on the religious right. And those who are religious but not necessarily consider themselves to be on the religious right are those individuals in the middle who I consider to be apathetic to what's going on, present almost the same amount of danger as those who are on the far right. Because if you are apathetic to what is going on, then you seem to, in some cases, um, you sympathize with those who are on the far right, or you believe that because it's something that's not happening to me, I should not be affected, or you think that in the long run, in the long term, that having a country that is a soft theocracy led by a wannabe dictator is not necessarily a bad thing if we are abiding by the norms and the laws and the rules of the Bible. Saran Lotto, thank you for peace to you. Thank you for being on. I don't think this is your first time, but I'm glad to have you. Thank you so much. Please share any comments that you may have as we go along on this topic. And so how do we get to Black Christians and them being unintentional, and I'm being nice when I say unintentional. I do know that there is a segment of African American believers out there who intentionally support what is going on from a standpoint of having this country ran based on religious beliefs. And it's hard for me to believe that these individuals support these things, uh, knowing the aftermath or the consequences that affects us as a collective. So it's almost as they said, like cutting off your nose to spite your face. These individuals, many of these individuals, consider themselves to be Christian first and African American second. And I always push back on that. Say that is a dangerous position to be in. Um, and so many of these African Americans, let's leave the ones who are intentional with their actions. Let's leave them aside for just a second. Those who are unintentional. So, what do I mean by African Americans or Black Christians, unintentional partners of Christian nationalists? What many of the leaders of the evangelicals, and first of all, the term evangelicals, we normally refer to white, far right Christians, but there are a large percentage. Last study I read, it was about 40% or 45%, something like that, of African American Christians who actually consider themselves evangelicals. So this is just not white evangelicals, but evangelicals in general. However, um, so we have evangelicals and Christian nationalists coming together. And so we have African Americans who, again, believe themselves to be Christian first and African American second. And they believe in their heart that this country morally is decaying. And they believe that the answer and the solution to that is for us to be under or live a strict um, life according to what is in the Bible. And so they will go out of their way to support that type of agenda, regardless of the damage that is also done in other aspects of that agenda. So, what I mean by that, uh, evangelicals and Christian nationalists who are in power, who are part of shaping policy, understand that the religious element of what they're doing can be used to control the masses, right? So they lay this sort of religion out there and say, we're doing this because we want the country to be more Christ-like, we want the country to follow Christian values, so forth and so on, while also doing things that are contrary to Christian beliefs, or at least what Christians say their beliefs are. Um, like being greedy, like not providing for those who are less fortunate, for cutting programs that help those who are less fortunate, by supporting a person who wants to be a dictator, by aligning ourselves with other wannabe dictators, by discriminating against those people who are different in any way possible, and different in the way they practice religion, and different in their private and personal lives. All of that, those are contrary, antithetical to what I believe, what I was always taught for 40 years, what a Christian and Christianity was all about. But because these individuals are have been so much indoctrinated to believe that morally we are on the decay as a country because of things that they're seeing maybe on social media or in life, they believe that by any means necessary to get us back to what they believe is a more moral country, under the guise of following Christianity or Christian values, they are willing to accept all of the other things, and that is dangerous. And so, and from that standpoint, Black Christians, African American Christians, become unintentional partners of Christian nationalists. So again, Christian nationalists, sometimes these individuals are people who are your neighbors, who work with you, who sit in church with you in some of these large, diverse mega churches, and they say all the right things, and you're my brother, you're my sister in the Lord, and so forth and so on. And African American Christians just eat it up. They eat it up because they really believe that they fall for all of this, and yet every every statistic that we know of, we as a collective group, we're not doing well in. And so again, it is an attempt for them to take advantage of us using religion, and many of our people fall right into it. That's why I say that there's Black Christians and African American Christians at times are unintentional partners of Christian nationalists. Um, when it comes to elections, one of the things that I despise that I've seen is African Americans being single issue voters. And this is particularly dangerous when that single issue is around religion. And so I personally know people close to me who voted against their interests because they had this disdain for the LGBTQ community, or they had this disdain for trans or abortion. All of these things that they could personally elect to not to participate in. If you don't like the LGBT community, then you don't have to participate in the community if you're not a member of that community. If you don't like trans, then you don't have to be trans. If you don't like abortion, or if you're against abortion or a woman having a right to decide, then you can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to have an abortion. Um, but many of these people that did vote that way voted that way because of single issues, and that single issue being one of religion. And so that is dangerous. So again, it is the larger, the ones who are pulling the ropes behind the curtains, who are using religion as a weapon to stay in power, and to get things done that they want done. So single issue voters, especially African Americans, and that issue being religion, it really really burns me. I have a good friend of mine who talks about his mother, who is very religious, and she's of that generation, so she would be like a baby boomer, if not older. But I think she's a boomer, um, and how these issues really, really, really bothered her, and that's all that she saw was, what's going on in the LGBT community, what's going on with trans. I mean, all this stuff is sort of, um, it's not necessarily made up as an issue, but it is exaggerated. You would think that there are trans people in every classroom in this country, presented presenting pornographic material to 6-year-olds if you listen to the far right, when in essence it is many of those in the clergy representing religion, Christianity, Catholicism, and many other religions, who have proven to be far more dangerous to our kids and our children than any trans person could ever be and has ever been. It is a documented history that many in clergy, not just the more outlandish things that we hear in the Catholic Church and the priest and all of that, but those of you who grew up in communities where the church was the centerpiece of the church, thus giving enormous power to those in the clergy, pastors, deacons, and others that were close, sort of giving them a enormous power, and worse, enormous protection for some of the things that they did. And in a lot of cases, regardless of what city you lived in, what denomination you were a part of, there has always been incidents of sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse from some of these clergy members. And so, because of their position and because of our reverence for their position, what they represent, and the church, many of our community have stayed silent and been quiet about the things that have been done to many of our children, including some of those who have grown up to become adults, who are also sharing in the protection of many of these clergy members. And so it is sad. Um, what I have seen personally and witnessed personally, not only have those clergy members been protected, but in some cases, the victims have been blamed for what the adult clergy members have done to them, by saying, you are wrong, or you're evil, or the way that you dress, or the things that you said, or the way that you look, so forth and so on. So again, uh, our unequivocal devoutness, our unwavering and unquestioning devoutness to a religion, um, is presents a problem in many facets and many parts of our life that we just don't question. And so now, many of those young people who are now maybe second, third generation of this things happening now are in a position they're older, but we live in a society where these things have been brought to the forefront, and they can question what was going on. They can make the accusations, and they can seek a remedy for what was going on. And more importantly, they can seek counseling because now many of these things are starting to become pushed out from underneath the rug, and we're seeing this. And so I hope as a community, um, that we stop protecting these predators that are in our church, some of these clergy members, the deacons, those who have enjoyed unfettered unfettered immunity from the things that they've done to people, the sexual and the physical and the mental abuse that they've done. And so I said it, and how does this relate to the topic that we're talking about? Again, if we begin as a collective questioning those things, and then we maybe as a collective we lose some of our devoutness, and we can put religion in the space that it needs to be, and we're not completely 100% driven, and our decisions about life are not made based on what this Bible says, or what's going on in the church. And so that is one of the positions that I hope that we get to. I oftentimes say, even in my classes and when I'm speaking, that what I do is not to deconvert anyone, right? It is to sort of put the information out there, help people to think to help people to think critically about their position and what they're doing. But at the end of the day, if the information is there, and you believe that you've thought critically about about these things, and you decide to stay a part of this institution of religion, organized religion, what I ask is that do something to make it better for those inside, those who are still part of the religion, and those of us who are outside of the religion. I firmly believe that we can coexist, but we cannot coexist with as many people who are now leaving religion and leaving faith, and the pushback that we're getting from those on the far right, those who would be Christian nationalists, those who would be part of the Christian nationalism movement. Now, let's sort of separate the two. We do understand that Christian nationalists and Christian nationalism is the extreme version of it. Um, my pushback is this. I've read many books, and I've listened to many podcasts and heard many speakers, because I try to not be balanced, but what I try to do is I try to get information from all sides, right? And so what I've heard and what I'm seeing recently is that I am seeing what I would categorize as good Christians. Um, and I had someone in my class the other day challenge me on that term, good Christians. I am not a generalist, meaning that I don't generalize everyone. As a matter of fact, I would be less than honest if I was to say that I did not know some good Christians. Many, as a matter of fact, most of the Christians that I personally know, I would consider to be really good Christians and good people. My mentor, who I still look up to, who I think is, if not the best, one of the best human beings that I've ever known, happens to be a clergy member. He's a wonderful person because I know him personally, and so I know his story. I know what he's done and hasn't done. So I'm not going to be disingenuous to say that there are not good Christians. Most of the Christians that I know are good Christians. However, what I am seeing is an attempt by good Christians to distance themselves from Christian nationalists and Christian nationalism without challenging them. The people who fall upon your religious flag, if they're doing something and carrying themselves in a way that you believe is not representative of what you believe your religion to be, then I believe that it is your responsibility, as well as others who think like you, to challenge these people. it would be the same thing with me being in, say, so I'm in a fraternity. If I saw those in the fraternity wearing my fraternity letters who were not upholding themselves, carrying themselves the way that I've been taught for 35 years now, the way that we should carry ourselves in this fraternity, it would be part of my responsibility to approach that individual and say, listen, that's not how we carry ourselves, right? As opposed to distancing myself and saying, well, that's not really a whatever, right? In this case, alpha. That's not really an alpha. Because guess what? He is an alpha. He's just acting unalpha like. And so the same thing with Christians who tend to try to separate themselves from Christian nationalists and Christian nationalism as a thing. Why not? Why not approach those individuals? And let me say this: there are organizations who are doing this. As a matter of fact, I became aware recently of an organization called Christians Against Christian Nationalists, or Christians Against Christian Nationalism. And so I reached out to them. I have not heard back from them yet, but I said to them, I think there's a your enemy is my enemy, right? And so there's some synergy here. I don't know if they will allow non-believers to speak, but as a person who is somewhat of an expert in this field, in this space, I would think that they would welcome someone like me. But that's a whole nother thing. But even prior to that, I've had these debates and these arguments and these discussions with my Christian friends. Many of them African Americans, a couple of them not, but they're still good Christians, good solid people, and through the minutia of our argument going back and forth, I finally said, "Listen, you're upset with the way I present information. You're upset with my approach, especially on social media. You say it is attacking Christianity and attacking you. Although I don't say it personally, Joe Blow. I understand that. I might not agree, but I understand that, and I'm certainly not going to change how I approach it uh, for a variety of reasons, including the nonstop bludgeoning of us non-believers with information and testimonies and everything else that you see on social media from believers. So if you guys are going to continue to do that, then I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. Um, but anyway, beyond that, so I finally said, listen, and I named several people in my circle of friends who are believers by name, and I tagged them and said, listen, if you're really sincere about not liking the information that I put up because you think that it is half truth or it is attacking, then I'll do this. Let us work together and fight what I would think all of us would see as the same enemy, and that is Christian nationalism, Christian nationalists. And it's been a couple of weeks now that I've thrown that out there, sort of saying, let's do something together where we can, maybe have an event, maybe have a cover, whatever, something where we can do that and bring the issue to the attention of many, and then show a united front to show that this is not what we really want. This is a bad representation of your religion. Um, and for me, as a non-believer, this is just completely on the other side of the world for what we want to see going on in this country. It's been 2 weeks, and I have yet to get any of them, to say, okay, let's do this together. Let's join together. So what that says to me is that this is more about um, in my opinion, this is more about them wanting to play victim, and this is Christians wanting to play victim because up until relatively recently, there's been a little pushback in this country on Christians, and so that is one reason why Christian nationalists have come to the forefront, because they've seen their more polite brothering do and say all the things that they want to do with very little pushback. And so now, through the current president and others like him, they've been armed and in some cases rewarded for being more open and out front about wanting this country to become a theocracy where they want to be dictator. And so so that's where we are. So if it's an issue for and I'll put this challenge to any of you out there now, who may listen to this, who are believers. um, if you believe that Christian nationalists and Christian nationalism is a detriment, and it is a bad example of your religion, then I urge you to reach out to me. Let's do something. Let's have a public debate about this. Let's do something publicly. And what it would do is that, first of all, it will show that a non-believer and a believer can come together for the collective objective good of everyone else. Number two, it will show how how Christian nationalists and nationalism is a bad representation of your religion and your faith. Again, as I've always said, I don't have a problem with Christians. I don't have a problem with Christianity, especially if it's practiced, if it's personal. I certainly don't have a problem with it. Where I do have a problem, and what I've had a problem with, is when it becomes public, and when we all are forced to live our life a certain way because of your religious beliefs. Christian nationalism and Christian nationalists um, is that on steroids. It is a system. Christian nationalism is a system uh, on steroids that tells us that we should run our life, and our life should be ran by what's in the Bible. Christian nationalists are extreme individuals on the far right who are putting in place this agenda for this to be. And so if religion is not your thing, if you're like, well, I'm not that concerned about religion, understand this. The same people who, in some cases, who are part of the Christian nationalist group are also part of those individuals who are part of the Heritage Foundation. And the Heritage Foundation, if you're not familiar with it, it's a conservative, very conservative foundation. But what's important, what you need to know about that organization, is that they are the architects of Project 2025. And so if you think that the religious stuff is not an issue to you, and this is how we get back to the politics of it, if you think that the religion or the religious part of it is not an issue for you for whatever reason, then there are other things that may become that are an issue for you. What we see in the whole whitewashing of our history, us being African Americans in this country, the whole subjugation, all of this is through Project 2025 and some of the things that they want to do, a more of a subjugation of those who are not heterosexual white males, including women, including other people of color. All of that, certainly, if you are part of the LGBT community, there are things that you're suffering from that present a threat to you. Environmental issues, certainly something that many of us are struggle with and are affected by. That's part of Project 2025. And so there's a laundry list of things not related to religion that is an offshoot of what Christian nationalists and their group, the Heritage Foundation, which many members are part of, is doing through Project 2025 and other policies. And so it affects all of us. And so what I try to do is stay in my lane. My lane is this here. And I've had people, good friends of mine, who are, again, very religious, say, there's so many other things going on in the world. And this is, specifically was said to me by a really good friend of mine. There are so many other things going on in the world. Why do you harp on religion? First of all, I understood this coming from this person who is very religious, devout. But I also said to them, you miss the connection. You're not connecting the dots. Um, this is largely undergirded what we're experiencing now. Um, and again, if you voted for the current administration for reasons that are um, not related to bigotry, bias, religion, hatred, whatever, whatever. If you really voted for this administration because of things like tax cuts or 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 objective, tangible things that benefited you, then kudos to you. But I think for the vast majority of us, I am looking at um, things like the cruelty at the way the processing is working, the process of things are working with this administration, along with the actual things that are being done. The stock market, for one, I am nearing retirement age, and this is money that's going to be very difficult for me to recoup. Not just me, but people who are in my age group and those who are older who need that money a lot sooner. Um, I'm looking at the cruelty that are done to people who are deported for no other reason other than maybe disagreeing with the policies of some of the things that the current administration has said and done. People who have been here, who are here legally, who have been separated from their families, um, and many many other things. The whitewashing of our history as African Americans in this country. I'm seeing all of this stuff. So all of those things, but there is a connection. And so I told this friend of mine, there is a connection between the two. You don't want to see it or can't see it because you're blinded by your faith, but it was those within your faith, which is the largest and the most devout and the most consistent base for this current administration. And so without evangelicals, without those individuals who consider themselves to be Christians, we wouldn't be where we are today. Now, they're not entirely responsible for everything that's going on. Clearly, there are many of them who are having second thoughts. Clearly, there are many of them who are, I would say, willfully ignorant to believe certain things when the opposite was right before their eyes, that are again second guessing and even feel bad about some of the decisions that they're made. But don't get it twisted. There are many out there who are behind what's going on, the cruelty and everything else that's going on, and who still call themselves Christians. That this is exactly, especially from the treatment of others. This is exactly what they voted for and what they wanted, because what they've done and what this country has done, we have a history of othering other, whether it be racially based, whether it be gender based, whether it be ethnicity based, nationality based, and religious based. We've done a great job in this country historically of othering, where we say I'm here and you're there, and that creates division between people. And so we've done a great job of doing that. And so a lot of these people see people that look like me and others of us as the other, and so, whatever it takes to levy pain and discomfort to us, they are willing to do, even if they experience some pain themselves. That is the scary thing. One of the scariest things about this country is that there are many of those out there, enough, who are saying that I am willing to endure some personal pain, financially, mentally, work wise, whatever it is, just to inflict more pain on you, on someone who I dislike for whatever the reason may be, whether it's your race, your gender, your nationality, your ethnicity, who you choose to love, um, your sexuality, whatever it is. And so but these same people, many of these same people, most of these same people, the majority of these same people call themselves Christians. And so I implore those of you who are good Christians, who understand and who are familiar with what's going on with Christian nationalists, to do your part to push back on those individuals. You don't, if you're uncomfortable with partnering with someone in the secular community, then by all means do it yourself, but make yourselves known. And so that's really what this podcast today uh, was about, and what I wanted to address. Um, at the end of the day, what we're seeing with Christian nationalism and Christian nationalists is a continuing different iteration of what we saw with the Ku Klux Klan, what we saw with segregation, what we saw with Jim Crow. It is just a wannabe, more polished version of it. And so, what we will say is that those individuals have taken off their white pillowcases with the eyes looking out, and they put on suits. Um, those who have gone to school and received a formal education, who have become lawyers and judges, and policymakers and Congress people, uh, they have white sheets at home, and so a lot of this is based on bigotry and hatred, but disguising it as Christian nationalists, Christian nationalism. Um, Dr. Eddie Glaude, who some of you may be familiar with, as I think he's on CNN or MSNBC as a commentator, but he's also a college professor, I think at Princeton, sort of said this a few days ago and got lambasted for it, got just crucified for it. And that is, if I want to end this, and I end this on this, um, what I'm finding really, really uh, discouraging and painful is watching our elected officials skate around the issue and call everything except for what it really is. Call it everything except for what it really is. Are there elements of the economy wrapped in this? Absolutely. Are there elements of illegal immigration that people are opposed to? Absolutely. Um, Other economic issues, absolutely. But at the end of the day, what is undergirding a whole lot of this for a whole lot of people is the hatred and bigotry for those who are different than them. And because of religion, because of Christianity in this case, and there are is weird. Let me not miss this. Um, Even those of you African Americans who practice Islam, my Muslim brothers and sisters out there, you are more. There seems to be more disdain for LGBTQ and um, pro-choice and those other issues than I think even with some Christians. And so those of you who do vote may vote on those issues as well. And so you are just as guilty as my African American Christians into helping to undergird this movement by Christian nationalists. You too may be unintentional partners of Christian nationalists. And so let's just be careful as the collective community, especially to my brothers and sisters out there who are believers, whether you're Christian or Muslim. It is perfectly fine and perfectly within your right to see things through the glasses of your religion and your faith, because it is hard, absolutely hard, to separate our lived experience from how we vote and how we see things. But let's not be so blinded until we miss all of the other stuff that's out there. You can vote in your best interest, in the best interest of your collective community, and still hold on to the values, your personal values that you believe that you received from your religious belief and your religious system. Um, and so I firmly believe that you can do that, and that needs to be done. And so, with that, I would say thank you for listening to me today. Saran Lato, thank you for being here. Taisha, and any other of you who are out there, the rest of you who are out there or who may listen to this later, I certainly appreciate it. I thank you for being here and listening. And I will talk with you in 2 weeks. Stay safe, and try to avoid all of the crap that's going on. We will collectively, we will be fine. And so I'll see you in 2 weeks.